Hello, hello. We are going to have Chris Kendall from The Raw Advantage on today. I'm super excited to chat with Chris about this topic. He's such an amazing soul and so grateful to be his friend and to have this conversation with. And we are going to go live with Chris. I've got some questions for Chris.
Oh, thank you, Lissa. So good to be here with you.
Oh, Chris, you're so awesome.
Oh, you
Seriously,
too.
you're beyond awesome.
Reciprocated at you, and I love the bangs, and I love the background, and I love you too. You're sweet. This is great.
Thanks. Yeah,
I want to bang myself now.
I know you mentioned that last year.
Yeah.
It'd be so funny to see Chris with bangs. That'd be so cool.
Sounds a little funny though, right? Like I want to bang myself. I feel a little awkward. Oh my God, this is so weird. What a weird start. I feel so bad for everyone. Oh gosh. Hey, Nancy.
Oh man. Oh, but that's what we love. That's part of health is humor, right? And laughing. So it's
True.
good.
Very true. If you can't laugh at yourself, I don't know what you maybe shouldn't be laughing at anything else. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've been totally into the Scottish theme lately, so
Heck yeah, ever since the ancestry, right?
Yeah, so yeah, excited to work on some Scottish recipes and dive a little deeper into the culture. And one of our dreams, I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next year or when, definitely not this year, but to go to Scotland for a month and just like chill and enjoy all of that stuff. And because there are some graves to some of my ancestors in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it would be really cool to go see those and just connect.
Get deep into the roots. I'm excited. My parents and sister and my sister's mother-in-law are going to be coming out to Sweden in September, and we're also actually going to go over to not Scotland but Ireland, and we have some Irish roots, and my sister feels really connected there, so she wants to go really bad. So I've never been. I'm excited.
That's gonna be amazing. Oh my gosh, yeah, Ireland. Whew, beautiful. And yeah, I want to plan it so it's like we do a hike every second day and we just drive around the country and just it's gonna be so amazing. But yeah, I'm excited for you. That's gonna be great. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited too.
Yeah, oh man. Well, our important topic today is going to be really good. And I'm really excited to chat with you on this because I have a passion about making sure people don't fall into fad diets or fall into the absolute statements and the guarantees, when people get a guarantee and it just doesn't pan out, they lose trust in it and stuff. So yeah, we're going to talk about why people tend to fall into fad diets or trends and extreme protocols and what you can do to avoid. So my first question, I've got a bunch of questions for you.
Oh, I'm excited. I love questions.
Yeah, I know, they're good. Okay, so number one, why do so many people fall for fad diets and believe that extreme protocols will work better than balanced long-term approaches?
That is a great question. And there obviously can be many different reasons, but I think there are probably two or three really big ones, and the first one is kind of the toughest one to recognize and also kind of the most sad that it is that they're desperate. They're just desperate. They're at the end of their rope. Nothing has worked for them. Maybe they're sick or they just are dissatisfied with themselves or life, and they just feel like I just need something. I need anything, and somebody making a grandiose claim and being really enigmatic or just really compelling, they can just easily fall for it. So I think that's one of the biggest ones, but I think other than that, also it can just be that that they want a quick fix. They don't want to be dedicated. It's so much easier to sell and also be sold on just do this one thing, or everything's gonna be completely perfect if you just figure this, and they just want that quick fix. They don't really want to do the lasting change. They want their cake and eat it too, as they say. But I think those are probably the two biggest ones. Do you have another one that comes to mind for you?
Not necessarily the person themselves, but the confidence that some people you know, who are sharing these trends and stuff, they're so confident and they're so sure of it. And yeah, we'll talk about like marketing stuff soon too, but like they're just so sure. And people, another thing that kind of irks me too is that, you know, there's an echo chamber, and people just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And even though ideas have changed, or, you know, balance is boring, so to speak, you know, for most people, it's really attractive to cling to this, because it's like, oh, like you said, oh, the one thing, the one thing. When people always ask me, they're like, what's the one thing? I'm like, well, you know what? It's not a one thing. It's a combination of so many factors. There's never one thing. So yeah, I would say confidence in those who promote these things can help, can like really get people to cling to it, even though they're intelligent people. You know, they make it sound so legit. And then the absolutes and guarantees, you know, those are good anchors for people, and they just cling to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even beyond that, you know, people can just, because they, again, that echo chamber, you know, they can hear it, or, you know, whether we're talking about within the raw food community or on the larger scale, you know, you get fed keto, 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 you know, like through all the media and all over the place. And, you know, you get people who are doing something for a couple months or even a year or two, and they're just like, this is the best thing ever, and I can't believe it. And they might be closeting some stuff and not really telling the whole truth, but it becomes one of those like, I want to get on the bandwagon, you know, this just sounds like the best thing ever, and you know everyone is promoting it nonstop, you know. So you know, and often too, some of those quick fixes and things that sound too good to be true, of course often they are, but often, like you said, it's people who are really charismatic and who really have a strong voice and exude the qualities that somebody wants, whether it's from what they're doing or just genetics or a whole host of other things. But they do it in such a way, like you said, that's just like it can dazzle people, and you know, people they just want it. They just really want it, you know, and they may not really be willing to do what it takes to do it, but they're hopeful that just doing a little thing can really get it.
Exactly. Instead of doing the little thing, you know, the little habits that build up that are boring. Got to do the extremes, which leads into the second question. Hi, Snoo. Snoo.
You wanted to say hi. Snoo's so cute.
Snoo. I know. I wish I had one to show you too.
The only quick fix I know is Snoo. She's a true quick fix for anything.
Oh my gosh. Oh, cats are the best ever. Oh man, that leads us into the second question, talking about social media. How does social media influence people's tendencies to follow these extreme diets? I know we've already discussed like the confidence and some and other stuff, but how else does social media play into effect?
Well, I think the tough thing sometimes with social media is that you don't see all sides, so you just see the shiny little bit, and you know, people want to believe, or you know, just believe that that's how it is, and if you do X, Y, and Z, then everything is perfect and you'll achieve all your goals, and life is just a sparkly rainbow at all times. And you know, so there's that aspect, and then also probably the reality too that there are more and more over time people that get into social media with high aspirations, but part of it is like really making a living first over necessarily really doing their due diligence research, going into things themselves, and the things that sell the best or are the most amazing, you know, they become their taglines and are things that are overly promoted or put forth again in such a way that it is just advertising, you know, and just really, really, yeah, grandiose claims and stuff like that, you know. So I think that's two aspects of social media that can be a little bit challenging and also can perpetuate this kind of way of putting things forth.
Mm-hmm. I know, and it's so easy for those kinds of things to go viral because people see it and they're like, share, 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 or did you see what this person did? You know, and they share it, and then it goes viral, and then more and more people are attracted to that, and they see, like you said, the shiny, perfect life. And we see far too many times people doing extreme things, like carnivore diet, for example, and they've come from an already extreme diet before that. So,
Yeah,
and you could even consider the standard North American diet to be an extreme diet as well, because most of it's like super
absolutely.
low in fiber, and they're going from a
Yeah,
low fiber diet to another low fiber diet, and they're just cutting out the junk, which I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people feel better when they do something like that, because they get super
yeah,
restrictive
mhm,
with, they're not eating any junk food. They're
yeah.
eating just the one thing, and then they're like, "Oh, it's amazing! It feels so good." And it's like, "Well, yeah, you cut out the junk food, yeah, of course you're gonna feel good, right?"
Absolutely. And then, and even on top of that too, I mean, there is the placebo, because if you believe what you're doing is the absolute best, and lots of people in the echo chamber you're in are self-affirming that and continually like cheering you on and saying it's amazing, and then you get that placebo. But also typically when you start making moves towards what you consider being a good move for your health, irregardless if it's, really great or not so great, you're usually going to also ramp up everything else, so like you're probably going to focus on your sleep. You might, feel a little bit better and energized. You're going to go to the gym, or you're going to, just have a more positive attitude, because you're looking forward to the benefits that you think you're going to get, and you're enjoying the short-term benefits that you may be getting as well, right? So it's a multifaceted thing, but it doesn't always end in the best results in the long term, sadly, with these fad diets. I mean, by the term fad diet, generally speaking, it comes with the assumption that you probably aren't going to be doing it forever long term and getting amazing results. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a fad, it'd be a lifestyle.
Exactly. I know. I love that you brought that up, because for me, for the most part, it's like if you can't do it long term,
Yeah,
then why even bother doing it short term? Like, work on those core habits, the foundation of your health, and build that slowly, because that's where the lasting change happens, anyways.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
speaking of the psychology, how does cognitive biases like confirmation bias or even cognitive dissonance
Mhm.
make people cling to fad diets despite the evidence to the contrary?
That's a big one. And I'll tell you, I've faced a lot of cognitive dissonance lately.
I know. Oh my god.
But I think again, it comes back to a host of factors. I mean, one of them just simply being that you want to believe it's so bad. Again, if you're desperate, or if you've had some short-term or even medium-term results with it, or again, if you're in that echo chamber and you just see it all around you, like you don't want to think what you're believing and what you're trying isn't true. It just, and when you research, it's amazing, because whether you're looking at Google, or whether you're looking at, chatbot, ChatGPT, or Grok, or any of these things, depending upon how you ask things, it's going to give you a different reply. So a lot of times people may have a perspective, and if they don't know how to research in an unbiased way, well, then everything they research just points them into self-confirming that exact same thing. And another part of this that is part of this, but also the first question that you had as well. Um, oh my gosh. I'll come back to it. I'm sorry. I'm getting really tired here today. It's going to come back up because it's popped in my head
Okay.
twice.
Okay, yeah, good, good, good. But yeah, it's cool that you said that about the confirmation bias, because
Yeah.
when you are chatting with chatbot, it's been really interesting. Nate and I have had many conversations with chatbot, and
Yeah.
we will say something like, "What if I was um, into carnivore, and what if that's what I believed? Would you still have the same answer, or would you change it?" And
Mm.
it's interesting to hear what it says, because it chatbot is even biased, like you said,
Yeah.
depending on
Oh yeah.
how you ask it
Mhm.
and what it knows about you.
Yeah.
Because when I interact with chatbot, it knows that I'm raw vegan, it knows that I'm ethical vegan, it knows all of that. So
Yeah.
whenever I ask it a question, it always, answers it in the way a raw vegan would.
Yeah.
So it's important that even though it's uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
even though you might be fighting it and be like, no, well, this is the truth,
Yeah.
if you are doing research from the perspective of the opposite theory or
Absolutely.
idea.
Yeah.
Research it as somebody who is involved in that. But also keep in mind that they have their biases too. So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
that's where like becoming a researcher, and looking at who's funding it, and how
Mhm.
big is the scope of the study, and all those things really, really come into play. And it's also important, I think, to note that whether we're talking about social media, or whether we're talking about chatbot, or any of these things, like they're designed to try and keep you on the app and to do it more and more. And if it's telling you contrary information all the time and just, feeding you social media that is opposite of what your beliefs are, you're more likely to shut it down and turn it off or not ask it as much, right? So I think that there is some confirmation bias built in there by design, and or just, like repetitive kind of petting your ego of what your belief system is just to keep you on there more. And it takes a little bit of toughness, I guess, to, like you said, research the opposite side and try to do your best to do so without any bias yourself. I mean, everyone's going to have some, but at the same degree, being conscious of that and really trying to, not play heavy into that bias hand is an important way to look at information and even scrolling through social media and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the confirmation bias, the cognitive dissonance. And it's Beautiful saying they can't listen to the rest of the chat, but we're going to share this on our social media. So
Yes.
come back and watch the replay. And before we go into the next question, please go grab the bundle if you have not yet. The link is in either of our bios. Here on Instagram, we don't mind if you leave the live to go spend a minute, go grab the bundle, and then come back because it's over today. So make sure that you get that.
And it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. What makes, I guess we already answered this one. What makes someone vulnerable to believing in miracle diet claims? More like you said, like the desperation, they're at their wits' end. This is a good one. What are some of the most misleading claims in the raw food and vegan world made by influencers these days?
There's a lot. I mean, kind of one of the ones that you mentioned kind of being that, like it's a cure-all, that it's just like really grandiose claims that like, if you just, do the raw food diet, then you're going to be way more successful. You're going to like, achieve all your dreams. You're going to be a millionaire and, all your health problems will go away. And any disease, like it cures every single disease,
You
like
can even
there's that one.
regrow limbs.
You can regrow limbs and regrow your teeth. And I've heard that.
Lissa, why do you still wear glasses? I get that one too. I'm like,
why
eye health
are you
is way
17
better.
feet tall? And
Right.
like it's there are so many just like definitive statement ones like that the one that sometimes I understand why people do it and I understand the perspective on it, but when people make claims like the best detox juice, I'm sorry, like those ones to me, it's just like the food doesn't detox you. It's just providing stuff for your body to do the detoxification. And I'm sorry, it's not really accurate, stuff like that. Of course, a really big one that I've tackled recently is the mucoid plaque myth. That's a giant one we've talked about behind the scenes for a few years now as I've been compiling my information research and ending the procrastination bubble of it. But that's a really big one. The ones that say like you shouldn't drink water and you should only eat juicy foods and that's how you're going to get all your hydration. That's better than a big one I want to make a video on, too, that greens are bad and vegetables are bad and you should just eat fruit because fruit is the best. I'm going to be making a full-on video on why I'm not a fruitarian for sure on that, and I'm sure I'll get more unsubscribers from that, but I don't care. Truth to me is more important than that's, I guess that's another part of it too, is like the want for fame or for recognition or self-affirmation, stuff like that. That's prevalent, I think, in some times, and I can understand that. I think I had more of that when I was a little bit earlier into it, and it strokes my Leo ego, but part of me would like to just disappear completely, to be honest. But yeah. But what are some other really no brushing of your teeth? No animals brush your teeth, so you shouldn't brush your teeth. And it's a lot of these kind of like black and white shouldn't kind of things, or the grandiose claims again that are just like far too good to be true. Like you can cure absolutely everything, and this is a good one. All cooked food is poison, like, and we'll give you mucoid plaque.
Right?
That's these are just myths that are really great sales tactics. And again, when people are desperate, or this is actually what I was thinking about before, when somebody has is a little bit more conspiracy minded and they completely throw out anything that isn't alternative or within their little bubble and think that it's all completely false and 100% conspiracy, and they just want to kill us. It's like when you come from that extreme mindset, then you're way more vulnerable to all of this stuff. And it gives you a sense of pride to think that you have the direct answer and you know better than everyone else. And again, it kind of like feeds that ego, you know. And I mean, I think I've said this many times, but I think it's great to be proud of, you know, your choices, that you're loving yourself in action, and reverberating that out into nature, into the animals. But beware pride. You know, pride becomes before the fall, right? So
Yeah. Oh, so true. So true. I know it's really interesting to see that, and I've had lots of people like I've witnessed on social
yeah,
media so many people who like they troll people who are, you know, vegan or raw vegan or whatever, and they're like, why do you have wrinkles, and why do you this, and why are you aging, like you should never age, you know, like it's like, but we're all still human. We're
yeah,
just here to, you know, support ourselves in the best way that we can. And what you said too about the absolutism thing, right? Like
yeah.
we are somehow expected to live forever and never get sick. And then if somebody does get sick,
Mm,
right? For example, I mean, a great example is Chef AJ
yeah.
with her diagnosis, and
Bless
she
her
had
soul.
anxiety because she was, you know, she didn't want to share because of how people react on social media. And it's just like, it's so heartbreaking that people
Yeah.
can't have that grace for those who are trying to support themselves
Mm,
in the best way that they can. But we are all still human, and we're all going to die from something, you know. And
yeah.
it's, and I love that you're going to do that video on the greens, because like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm all
It's
about, you
a
know. Yeah.
it's such an important one, you know. And I mean, I can reflect the same too, you know, when I had the skin cancer issues. And
Right.
you know, so I like made videos about that, and I was in some part a little hesitant, because again, yeah, I thought that it would just reflect badly and people would be like, oh well, the diet, it's obviously the diet. And yeah, I got some of that. You know, you get some people saying, well, if you would have done it right, or if you did this, or blah blah blah. And it's like, there are other factors that affect your health. You know, like food is just one spoke, and it's a big one because most people are so far off. But once you kind of got that, you know, in some semblance of whole foods and raw and vegan, or more of that stuff at the very least, it's important to really look at all the other factors of health. And like you said, have some grace, have some empathy. You know, the social media landscape these days, like, I'll admit, whether it's here or Facebook, a lot of times I just want to not really be there too much, because it's just so divisive. Like everything is, it's kind of funny even saying that everything is. It's not true,
I
but there's a
know.
lot of black and white. You know, there's really a lot of black and white, and people are way more quick to dismiss. You know, and to just try and cancel. We've got a little bit out of that cancel culture, thank be. You know, that was to me a little bit off. You know, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, as someone else mentioned too, I mean, while I'm you know, shooting myself in the foot here, yeah, some other great myths are I think personally are the urine therapy, you know, and
Oh,
stuff
right.
like that. I'm not a fan of that myself, you know.
Neither are we. You know, one thing that I don't
Um,
like too is the myth that raw vegans need less sleep
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
That's one that
yeah,
bothers me
yeah,
because,
yeah.
I mean, through my research,
Mhm.
it's like our bodies, most people undereat when they go raw, for one.
Yeah,
That's like the
huge,
number one thing.
yeah,
People just
yeah,
aren't eating enough calories. And then your body wakes up earlier to go look for food. And then, you know, you wake up, you have lots of energy. And these raw foodies who are under eating, they're like, I have so much energy. I only slept like 5 hours. And it's
yeah.
like, well, your body's looking for calories. Like, you gotta
Like
eat.
cortisol
So,
pumping and stress hormones pumping, and that's such a
exactly.
good one. I mean, that's another myth that I'll definitely be going a
Mhm.
video into. I think it's one of the worst advice of the raw vegan movement is to eat less, and to think that, you know, like, try to eat less. It's more spiritual to eat less, you know. And like, the longevity studies, you know, yeah, they show that you know, caloric restriction is beneficial, but it's not caloric restriction less than your body needs. It's caloric restriction less than getting way too much. I like what Dr. Rick and Karen Dina say, you know, caloric optimization.
I
And
love
it's
that.
just so beautiful with a raw food diet, that you can eat with complete abundance and feel like you're almost overdoing it, but actually be baseline, because these foods are just, you know, so high fiber, water, you know, nutrition, and, you know, they're just so satiating and amazing. So it's like, yeah, the whole, like, you know, breatharianism, and, you know, eat less. And if you're just perfect and you've cleansed yourself right, you only need 1,000 calories. You can completely skip the law of thermodynamics and all known nutrition and health and wellness. You know, it's these myths, they enamor people. And I've met many people who, dig deep into that rabbit hole. And the sad thing is again, these desperate and desperate people or impressionable people or people that really feel like everyone's out to get them except for just one or two people that know the truth.
Right.
They typically are the ones that end up yo-yoing the sharpest back and forth and have the hardest time and become even more disillusioned. And it's really hard on the body to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's why myself, and I know you too, are really champions of lifestyle and really getting well versed in a balanced lifestyle and do that, like create the backbone out of that. And yeah, sure, if further down the line or once you've kind of created a firm base where that's maybe where you go back to, if you feel like you need a short-term protocol to help with a lingering issue or a chronic issue or just to give yourself a bit of a break, all the power to that. But I think the over focus on protocol rather than lifestyle is a failing point and one that I've just seen hinder a lot of people and just create way more yo-yo reliance on protocol, 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 chimichanga, 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 protocol, protocol, protocol.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, exactly. And you and I have spoken with hundreds, if not thousands of people
Oh
who
yeah.
struggle with these kinds of things and have these questions because they're just, like you said, the echo chamber, and
Yeah.
everyone's just a parrot. They're parroting, advice that they've heard. And another one before we move into the next question that I thought of was the whole intuitive eating thing. I believe that we should be intuitive with our bodies, but most people don't know how many calories to eat, so then they intuitively undereat, and then
Yeah.
that perpetuates it, and they're like, well, no, I'm listening to my body, but they're only getting 800 calories a day.
Yeah.
Eventually that's going to run into some issues, but they cling to that intuitiveness. They don't want to track their calories in the beginning. They don't want to learn about the food that they're eating. And that's the best way to know how much you need, is to track just for a little bit. It doesn't have to be a crutch. It doesn't have to be an obsession. It's just a learning
Yeah.
tool to learn how much you need
Yeah.
and what you need to get, a broad range of nutrition. And then from there,
Yeah.
then you can listen to your body more and be like, I'm craving
I,
something savory or sweet, have some fruit or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the big point that you said there too is like the obsession and as well as it not being forever. And it's just like any new skill you learn, it takes a little bit of time. And sometimes there is a slight bit of obsession as you get enamored by it. Oh my gosh. But like take some time to learn those things. And, because there is those echo chambers and because there are, mixed views all over the place and people can just really get sideswiped with that. And, understanding caloric density and understanding human nutrition and our needs and that calories we typically are going to be eating less than we would really require when we start with a raw food diet. That knowledge can be really really helpful. And as you go through your journey, intuition gets a little bit louder and things become a little bit clearer. But in the beginning, if your intuition is like, well, I just need chimichangas, or I just need French fries, or I just need like chocolate every day. It's like
Or I just
there might be
feel like I
something else
don't
there.
need to eat at all. That's another big one too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, that's definitely true, and that's a slippery one. And that's again, those are generally the people that I see yo-yoing and getting bone thin and then blowing up and getting bone thin and blowing up. And it's a tough thing to see because I know that that's incredibly hard physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's just a sad thing. And it's sad that these situations, all these things we're kind of talking about, that it can be seen as taking advantage of people, especially when it's like really salesy, super salesy. And I'm definitely not making the case that everyone who does that and promotes those things are doing that knowingly. But in the bigger scheme of things, that's kind of some of the reality of it. Sadly, it's like the ends justify the means often are the mantra, and it's a tough pill to swallow when you see the ramifications of it.
Yeah, totally. I know. Speaking of ramifications, it leads into the next question. What are some of the biggest health risks associated with following some of these extreme trends or beliefs?
Well, I mean, depending upon which one we're looking at, it can lead to malnutrition. It can lead to a really low body weight. It can lead to, having nutritional deficiency and, like with that nerve issues, brain issues, like I will never ever supplement ever anything, that's another kind of one of the ones, that all supplementation is evil or all doctors are evil. So I'll never get a test. It's again, just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. just never exhibiting the health that they're looking for. I mean, all the stuff we're talking about, people are looking for health. They want to feel better. They want to look better. They want to have more energy. And, to try to do everything you think is right because somebody said it and you don't get those results, that can be so demoralizing and lead people to be like, well, F it all. I'll go the opposite direction and just be at the fast food joint or, come to substance abuses and stuff like that, so, and even death, there are sadly people that follow people's advice and into the point where they, breatharian themselves to death or fast themselves to death or, disrupt their digestion so bad that they have to be hospitalized or just can't digest food. I've seen a lot of this firsthand and secondhand. It's a sad, sad thing. And I think that's why, both of us are here doing this and spreading this kind of information, championing lifestyle and continuing research and, taking everything with a dash of green salt.
I love it. I know, right? Yeah, it's so good to be that.
This is just saying Lockhart. Dry
right?
fasting, that's another big one.
Dry fasting, never. Yeah, never. We fast. I like to say, like, we dry fast when we sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's like the only time that, because you're unconscious, so obviously you're not. But it's such a challenging thing too when people feel like they can control their body by doing these things when their body is like crying out for something. Like, for example, something I was talking to Nate with earlier. I find it really interesting when people will comment on a recipe post or picture or whatever, and they'll have to say that they're on day 18 of a 40-day fast or whatever, and they're like, this looks so good, I really want this, and they're just completely neglecting their body's desire for food. Because if you're looking at it and you really want it, it's like, your body wants it, obviously. So there are things there too that are kind of interesting to observe, and I'm sure you have as well. And like we talked about, like so many people message us because we speak out about this, and we do talk about the other side of some of these trends. People feel comfortable coming to us and sharing their stories. And they don't usually share those stories publicly. We hear them behind the scenes because if they do share them publicly, there's a lot of backlash, like what you did with your video, right? Like you get a lot of backlash, and we take that on because we want to share truth and we want to support people who have experienced these negative side effects and have nowhere to turn. Because if they go to like the original person that they got the information from, they're gaslit. They're told they didn't do it right, they didn't do it long enough, or whatever it is, their fault, right? It's never the protocol's fault, it's the person's fault. And so then they feel guilty and regretful, and they're like, I just didn't do it right, and I'm never going to heal, and I don't know what to do. I'm a failure, and they identify with it. So we have to give those people's stories grace, because they have experienced these things, and there's hundreds and if not thousands of people that we've talked to combined that have all experienced these things, and it's really sad to hear.
No, absolutely. I've had many a consult say I've done this, I've talked to this person, blah 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 blah, and like didn't get results. And you're spot on with that, and it is sad. And this isn't to try and call anyone out or anything like that whatsoever. It's just trying to separate fact from fiction and provide some clarity, or at the very least, plant some little seeds, into people to look at it with a little bit of a wider mindset instead of this black and white, instant, fix kind of mentality.
Yeah, which leads into I love how all of these are leading into the next questions. It's so great. The flow is awesome. We have answered a few of the other ones that I wanted to ask, but how can somebody tell the difference between sound nutritional advice and balanced stuff and marketing gimmick or gaslighting or fear-based? Like, what can they look for to kind of get an idea that this might not be, as sound?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you said there, like if there's the real fear-based, like problem, and promoting it in such a way that it's just like you start to get afraid, like you didn't have any symptoms whatsoever, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, what do I maybe, like to me that's, problem, solution, action, whatever the phrase goes. You can tell how often I use that modality, even though it's probably the best for selling. But that's a big one. right there. If it just sounds too good to be true, that's a big one. If it completely contradicts like all other information and is completely like, debunked in, say, the medical community, at least, try and have a grain of salt with that then, green salt, and like dig a little bit deeper, look into it. If it just leads you to think that everything is a conspiracy, like absolutely everything except for this one truth. Well, again, at least try and dig deeper, I think those are some of the big ones. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I always look for the absolute statements and the
Yes,
guarantees.
that's
Yeah. As soon as you hear that, as soon as
I always look for them.
I always look.
Oh, only Siths talk in absolutes.
Right. I look for the
Yeah.
absolute statements. I know
Sorry about that.
it's
I'm
so
sorry.
hard. No, it's so true though, because in our
Yeah.
language, we're
Yeah.
so used to using those absolute words:
Yeah.
forever,
Yeah.
never, always. The one thing, you
Mhm.
have to, you need
Yeah.
to, and it's like these statements make people fear. They have this
Yeah.
fear, so they choose based out of fear. Like a lot of people, like you
Yeah.
said, with all cooked food is toxic,
Yeah.
right? That's a
Yeah.
big one. And when people
It's
hear
huge. Yeah.
that, they most people choose raw out of fear of the cooked food instead of
Yeah.
choosing raw out of love of the raw food, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we gotta break free from that and just release the absolutes and
Yeah.
and really realize that nothing is black and white. Oh, pretty much everything is black and white. Black and white, however, is black and white. But you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah, like I mean, there are some absolutes that are true. Like, for example, there is no fiber in animal products or
Yeah.
oil,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There is no fiber in
Yeah.
oil or animal products. So,
Mhm.
there are some absolute statements that are true.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would say most stuff is hyper um, shared or hyper guaranteed
Yeah.
to get people to get on board with their ideas as well. So if somebody, I find a lot of influencers tend to want everybody to believe what they believe.
Mhm.
So they create these like absolutes, or they gaslight or shame other people for doing it a little differently in
Yeah.
order for them to be
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
can really harm. I feel it's irresponsible to do stuff like that on social media,
Yeah.
because it makes people feel guilty for eating certain things. And
Yeah.
that happened to me early in my journey when I
Mhm.
first went raw in like 2014.
Mhm.
There were groups that I was joined with on Facebook and stuff, and I would put one clove
It's
of
hard work
garlic in my
there.
dressing, and I would get like raged on
Yeah.
because I was having a little bit of garlic, and I wasn't going to be ever clean or whatever, and it was hard for me in the beginning. And if
Yeah.
we want people to embrace more raw and we want them to find balance, we need to stop making people feel guilty for having something that maybe they don't want to have. And it's okay if you don't want to have garlic, you don't want to have garlic, but don't make other people feel guilty for having
Yeah.
garlic. That's just one example, but
Well,
there's like so many other things out there, people who will gaslight you or make you feel
for sure.
bad for having greens, for example. It's just
Yeah,
one.
I've been gaslit and attacked for many things, and whether it's I had a recipe that had a beet in it, and I was told that I was just in it for the money, and I was killing people with the beet, and hot peppers, yeah, or onion, same thing. That it's like, yeah, allowing people to have their own journey to come to their own conclusions and not make it all about right and wrong and perfection. And it is a journey, and obviously there are principles and things that have maybe more optimal or less optimal results for some people at different stages, but it's up to the individual, I think, to explore that. And telling people and forcing information on people often turns them away. It's a tough thing, to find that balance, but I think it all starts with ourself and our self-talk and how we reflect that out to others. And that's kind of what we were talking about with the psychology and also the language used. It can be really violent, and it can be either love affirming, or it can be separating and self-depressing, and or just not really being rooted in love and care for the self or other people, right? And again, kind of going back to like this, like healthy life is about a lot more than just diet. It's about so much more than diet. And obviously diet has a big role, and there's a lot of things for a lot of people to learn, and but it is a dance, and looking at the whole picture and looking at, all the other stuff, and trying to stack your cards is going to be the most rational approach.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's those who tie their identity with it. So if they come
Yeah,
across information that goes against their identity, they feel
yeah,
attacked because it's not the person that you're attacking, it's the theory or the idea that you disagree with. So it's not that, but people identify with the theory as who they are,
yeah,
right? Like, I am whatever. And then if somebody says, well, I don't believe in whatever, then they're like, oh, well, then you're attacking me. And it's like, no, 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 I just don't believe in
no,
the thing. So,
yeah,
but people identify so hard with it. And then
yeah,
then they get into onto that soapbox and they're like, no, this is the way, this is, and that perpetuates the
yeah.
continual echo chamber. Hmm.
Evangelicalism, it's yeah, I've definitely been there myself. I think it's common, especially in the first few years, because you experience such powerful shifts, and things are so fresh with like the discrepancies between what the media says about diet, nutrition, and all this. And you're like, oh my God, it's all lies then, and you just lump everything in the same basket, right? And it's takes
Or
some
as
time
soon
to
as
disseminate.
Yeah, exactly. Or as soon as there's like a piece of information that comes out from research or what have you, as soon as it's research or whatever, people are they poo-poo it, or they dismiss it because if it doesn't align with what they believe or what's been taught for hundreds of
Yeah,
years, they're like, oh well, it was taught hundreds of years ago and it's been suppressed, and they think as soon as it's been suppressed that it's magical or something, and
yeah,
we have to believe this thing that's been suppressed. But if it's been proven incorrect, then
exactly.
like
Just because
it just isn't.
something is old and has been held by, held like high by lots of people doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% true. I think it's good to revise, to learn more, to continually research and check all this stuff out, because, otherwise we're stuck in the past. I mean, I don't know. I think it's good to continue researching and looking more.
I agree totally. I'm all into it. Like, I love the combination
Mhm.
of the intuition with the
Yes.
science and, like combining it all, because it's important to have both sides and to not like dismiss intuition, but also not to dismiss science, and
Yeah.
just, like you said, look at it from all angles and really use the logic. Like, take the identity out of it, take the emotion out of it, take the cognitive bias out of it, the
Yeah.
dissonance out of it, and just look at it like a Vulcan would, with
Yeah.
logic.
Logic, yeah. We're asking a lot of people, Lissa. It's no,
Right.
but
Um,
I totally feel that. I totally feel that.
yeah. Yeah. So what if somebody is currently in that state where they are still stuck in those belief systems? What would you recommend to them to start to like move out of that? I know it's hard.
You
It's
know,
hard because when you're
yeah.
stuck in it, you're not going to listen. But yeah.
That's exactly the truth. It is tough, because often those who could really benefit from it the most are the most resistant to change and want to dig their heels in, more. But I would just encourage everyone to self introspect more, to look at themselves, look at the beliefs they hold, and see if it's really benefiting them, and look out to see if there are other people, doing the same things, holding the same beliefs for decades and decades, and see what those results are as well. To always continue researching, to look and learn how to research on PubMed, or make sure that they're not just biasedly searching all the time and being in their little confirmation bubble. Like, peek your head out. It's one of those other points too, kind of too, that it can become almost religious, in the sense of like, I can't hang out or shouldn't hang out with people that aren't vegan or raw vegan, and it's creating almost like a better than or a judgment kind of call on things, and really believing you're better than other people, so you don't want to be around other people. It's not super prevalent, but I have definitely seen it in the movement, and um, I think anything that is creating separation between ourselves and others is, again, the path of the Sith. So it's a something to be not cognate of, I think, at the very least, because if we're judging other people, it usually stems from judging ourselves and not being
Mhm.
able to accept ourselves and our past with that. So it's a tough pill for people to swallow, but to me, this is really a lifestyle of growth, and it is not just an end point where, oh, well, I got my diet perfect and now I've just reached the pinnacle. It's like, there's always something new to look into, to grow with, and to challenge ourselves with, and recognizing that growth is challenging typically, like it takes a little bit of grit, and it takes a bit of dissolution of self in some ways, but the other side of that, and that desire to continually grow, has so many benefits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know, totally. And yes, the definite overall health thing is so important, like you said. Like Rosalind Graham always talks about the wheel of health, right? With the spokes you
Yes.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Having all of your spokes, and a lot of people will put way too much emphasis on one spoke, and that
Yeah.
spoke is so long, and all the other spokes are so short. You're gonna have like a wheel that doesn't run properly.
No,
So
exactly.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about, being open as well,
Mm.
opening your heart, and listening to other people's perspectives, even though you might not agree at the moment.
Mm.
Maybe you may, right? Or maybe it's just to listen to their perspective so that you have a better understanding of your own as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
which is important too, because a lot of people can block out what they really don't agree with. For example, I'll use the carnivore example because it's great with the vegans, right? They don't want
Absolutely.
to listen to anything that the carnivores have to say,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's not about agreeing with them,
Mm.
but it's about listening to it to understand their perspective, because their perspective can solidify you in yours as well, because you
Mm.
see what they're coming from, you research it, and you're like, well, that's not true, or I see this study is obviously flawed, or whatever it is, which confirms your stand as well. So, listening to them does not mean you agree with them.
No.
It just means that you're open to learning a little bit more from a different perspective, and then, going from there. So
Know
it's
thy
hard.
enemy.
Yeah,
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
hilarious. Right, totally. I mean, there you go. But it also gives you um like a foundation for how you can share your point too, right? Because if you know
Absolutely.
their
Yeah.
arguments, you can have arguments on your side as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can find anything to support anything these days.
Yeah.
It's like,
Absolutely. It is crazy. And in my first, I think it was in my first 5 or 6, no, around 5 years raw, I was like trying my best to debunk myself. Like I was like trying to look at every single thing that I could, and part of that was also just like learning a lot from Dr. Graham, and going into like every kind of pitfall and contrary opinion, and really trying to disseminate, the fact from fiction there. And because again, yeah, you're totally right. Like if you're out and about, or you're on social media, that's going to be probably more realistic, because people are a little bit more nasty online than in person. And you're headbutted right in the nose with some, well, you're not getting this or that, or you should be getting this from this. It's like, is it true? Well, if you've never looked into it and you don't know both sides, then you don't know how to respond. And it on social media, people look at the comments too, and if you don't have a response that is actually credible, it stands out. Like it stands out like a sore thumb when extreme, unsupported views are just ranted about. At least I notice it. I'm sure a lot of other people notice it too.
I know, yeah. And then they get restrictive, and that sells, and it's always viral stuff that gets a
I was,
lot of the
I was gonna
views.
say that earlier. I was gonna say like a point to like take it for, like to wonder if it's actually truthful, is like, is it viral? Because if it's like, obviously great things can go viral. I
Yes.
mean,
Hmm.
kitties and your raps and like a lot of other cool things, like great things.
Hmm.
But I think that is actually like a point. Like if you see something going totally viral, like you may want to put a little bit more question on it, like look into it a little bit deeper, because yeah, there's a lot of distractions out there, I think, for specific purposes. And the reason why some things go viral isn't necessarily always for the best reasons, sadly.
Hmm. Sadly, I know. Yeah, and then the influencers see it. They're like, "Ooh, that went viral. I'm going to make more of that content." And then
Yeah.
that content goes viral, and then they grow really fast. And then when people see that they grew really fast, and they're like, "Oh, this must be truth,"
Yeah.
because so many people follow it.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because the crowd follows it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
No.
So yeah, it's really hard to to see, you know, the difference between what is true and what is not. But again, like you said, it's growth. It's a lifelong journey. It's constantly questioning and, you know, looking at all sides. And yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
for a lot of people because they're already busy. They already have, you know, their kids or their family, their jobs, their other stuff, and they may feel sick, and trying to look for that healing, and just like the exhaustion that comes for those people can really, you know, make them magnetized to the trends because
Quick
it seems
fixes.
easy. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's I mean, the reality is life can be freaking hard. It's not all rainbows and puppy dogs. And, you know, to me, it's like this lifestyle just offers you the best chance of getting through it with more grace and more connection, more compassion, and more conscious thought, word, and action, right? So it's just, there isn't a quick fix. I'm sorry to put it out there for you. You know, I mean, the quickest fix is a healthy lifestyle, a healthy holistic lifestyle, and it can be pretty quick, but it's
Mhm.
not like instant in solving everything immediately. You know, it's kind of like that thing too. Like if you move somewhere else, you know, your problems follow you. You know, it's like you start the raw food diet, your shadows, they still follow you. It's just it might be a brighter light on those shadows, and either you ignore those shadows or cobwebs, or you know, you breathe and you work through them. You know, but it's I wish there was more quick fixes, Lissa. I wish it was just a button you push and, you know, life's completely easy and you have pure health at all times and all that stuff. But sorry to say, guys, it's just it's not quite like that in reality, you know. But that said, I still really 110% think, you know, like the raw food diet and what we're doing is the most positive vortex of change possible. Like it brings about so much, you know, but it isn't just instant and solves every single problem and cures every single disease at every single time. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I made a video during the bundle. It was like, the secret is there is
There's
no
a secret.
secret. You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's not one thing. There's not whatever. Like, it's all health. It's all health. We are still
Yeah.
human. You
Yeah.
know, and if you get sick, it's okay. You
Yeah.
know, just support yourself through it and
Yeah.
work with your body instead of feeling guilty. Like so many people. I've known so many people in the raw community who won't even say like I had a flu or whatever,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're scared of what the rest, they're going to be like, oh, the raw diet doesn't work, oh, that's why you got sick,
Yeah.
you know, so they don't even say it, and then that creates this bubble of perfection because they
Yeah.
don't even say that they may have a flu. But it's not about that. It's about supporting yourself to the best of your ability through whatever your body has to go through, and having that grace, and knowing that you are human.
We are
We're
we
not
are
immortal.
we're all human. We are all human. You know, I feel a little bit guilty saying it, but I haven't been sick in over 20 years, truthfully.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
but
Yeah.
I but I have had some low days for sure. And I did have from stress, I had one day that I was like off. And
Yeah.
also I did get COVID for like 8 hours, you know, but I've you know I've been off in other ways for sure. I've had like high levels of stress or just like a need to sleep more and stuff like that. But
Same here.
yeah,
Yeah. And Nate and I have both felt under the weather for a few days, you know, and usually it's due to stress, like you said, lack of sleep. You know, we're
yeah,
overworking and we're trying to help the people. So, you know, we're up late hours, and sometimes that can affect us. And definitely, you know, we've had some under weather days too, and it's normal, and it's fine to go
it's
through that.
it's life.
Everyone's going to have
Yeah,
different things that their body
exactly,
goes through. Hmm. And
exactly.
it's not always diet doesn't heal everything. You know, there, like for example, with sleep, you
Yeah,
know, sleep does stuff that diet will never do. And
yeah,
you need
yeah,
to have those complete sleep cycles to clean your brain from the Alzheimer's plaques,
yeah,
and the lymphatic system that's only cleansed during sleep. Like no amount of fruit's going to cleanse your lymphatic system. You got to sleep to do
no,
that.
yeah.
So
And you got
yeah,
to move too. And
you
it's
got to
yeah, there's
move.
just there's so many pieces to it. I love sleep.
Me too. I know, I hear you. Oh my gosh, sleep is the best. So as we conclude, do you have any final words before we end?
Oh, geez. I think the big thing is, you know, life's a bit of a dance. You know, enjoy the swings and be easy on yourself. It'll make things a lot smoother and more graceful. You know, recognize that this is a journey and a long-term commitment to yourself and your health. And with that, again, there's going to be some swings and some moments. And, you know, it's when the hits the fan that you get tested the most. And it's okay to falter and fall. We're slow learning creatures. most of us are going to bump our head more than a few times before we look and go, oh, I'm going to avoid that this time, you know? So, and again, just kind of on the whole kind of topic here, if it sounds way too good to be true, if it's completely black and white and just like, you know, like makes you all of a sudden really want to reach into your pocket as fast as you possibly can, maybe like take a breath, relax a little bit, and you know, consider a little bit more.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris, for speaking the truth and sharing what you've learned over, you know, almost 20 years that you've been doing this. You know, like it's amazing that you're here and you're sharing and people can learn from you. And I appreciate you. Nate appreciates you. We are just so grateful to have you in our life. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
1,000 thanks. Absolutely right back at the both of you 100 times. And I'm excited to have more in person because we've had a lot of FaceTime like this, but it's going to be good to chill and enjoy and explore and do other things in person sometime. And
Yes.
thanks everyone who's been live with us and who's compassionate. And even if you have a different point of view, you know, sharing it without getting crazy,
Right.
you know, that's a kind way to go.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. Oh, well, thank you very much. And yes, this will be posted on Instagram on both mine and Chris's pages. And I'm also going to post it on YouTube, and I think Chris will too. So you'll be able to watch it again and rewatch and enjoy. So thank you. Thank you,
Love
Chris.
it. Thanks so much, Lissa.
All right. Love you.
Guys.
Big hugs.
Love you too.
Bye, guys.
Bye.